You lift a seashell to your ear, and there it is, a soft, endless roar, like waves rolling across a distant shore. But you're nowhere near the ocean. So how does the sea find its way into a hollow spiral of calcium? This question has puzzled children and travelers for centuries, and tonight, it's our doorway into a calm journey of sound, memory, and the quiet poetry of nature. You'll discover that what seems like magic is actually something even more fascinating. The way your ears, your mind, and the world around you conspire to make seashells sing. Welcome to the thoughtful night, a place where science slows down to a whisper and curiosity becomes a lullaby. As you settle deeper under the covers, this hour is yours to drift, to imagine, and to learn without hurry. Before we begin, take a deep breath. And another. Let the day slide off your shoulders. And if you enjoy these calm explorations of science and wonder, consider subscribing to The Thoughtful Night. It helps keep this quiet corner of the internet glowing. I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Are you by the coast? In a busy city? Or somewhere far inland where seashells are treasures brought home from travels? Leave a note in the comments and share your corner of the world. Now let's start at the beginning, with a single shell resting in your hand. Its surface is cool and smooth, etched by time and tide. You hold it close, and it begins to whisper. Is it the voice of the sea? Or could it be something else entirely? Something hidden in plain sight? Tonight, we'll explore what sound truly is, how seashells shape it, and why your brain transforms a faint murmur into the memory of waves. Along the way, we'll meet spirals carved by nature, resonant chambers that sing like instruments, and the strange, beautiful ways our minds weave science into story. So dim the lights, let the noise of the day recede, and listen closely, not just to the seashell, but to the quiet world around you. Our first step, what is sound, really? A universe once small enough to fit in your hand now stretches beyond imagination. The night sky, speckled with ancient light, is not a still picture but a living story. Every star, every galaxy slowly drifting apart as if carried by an invisible tide. To gaze upward is to see motion frozen in time, expansion so vast that it feels still. Imagine standing in a dark field, no city lights, only the hush of wind in the grass. Above you, constellations hang like lanterns, yet they are not anchored. They move not through space but with space itself. This is the illusion. The heavens seem steady, yet the cosmic fabric beneath them is swelling like the surface of rising dough. What keeps the universe growing long after its birth? Once, scientists thought gravity would slow it down, perhaps even pull everything back together. But observations tell a different story. Distant galaxies are racing away faster and faster. The universe doesn't just expand. It accelerates. It is tempting to call this magic. In the deep quiet of the cosmos, you expect gravity to be king, to gather and hold. Instead, something unseen pushes outward. Nature, it seems, hides its deepest truths in plain sight, like poetry written in a language older than stars. This expansion isn't like an explosion throwing debris into empty space. It is space itself unfolding, stretching every moment, everywhere. If you could freeze time and draw a grid across the cosmos, the squares themselves would grow larger, carrying galaxies like boats on an ever-widening sea. The wonder is both humbling and unsettling. If everything is rushing apart, does that mean we are too? Are the atoms in your body spreading like galaxies? No. Local gravity and forces of matter hold small things together. Planets, stars, even clusters of galaxies resist the stretching. But on the largest scales, nothing stands still. Scientists first glimpsed this truth in the red-shifted light of galaxies, tiny spectral fingerprints sliding toward longer wavelengths. It was Edwin Hubble who measured the retreat, proving that space expands. And later, two physicists discovered faint microwave radiation, a soft afterglow of the Big Bang, washing over Earth like the memory of cosmic birth. So what drives this expansion? Something we call dark energy, a name as mysterious as the phenomenon itself. It acts like a pressure, not pulling but pushing, not slowing but speeding up. No one can hold it in a jar or describe its true nature. We only see its fingerprints on the sky, the way starlight bends and shifts as the universe swells around it. In this mystery, science and wonder meet. The universe whispers not in words but in patterns of light, in galaxies receding like echoes in an endless corridor. You might think of it as a breath that never stops, the first breath of creation, still flowing outward billions of years later. But how do we even define this expansion? What does it mean to say that space itself grows, when we can't feel it beneath our feet? In the next chapter, we'll look closer at the essence of sound and vibration, what it means in the language of physics for reality to stretch. Sound begins as motion, not the kind you can see with your eyes, but tiny tremors, molecules nudging one another in an invisible relay. When something vibrates, whether it's a plucked guitar string, the flutter of a bird's wing, or the shifting of air in your own chest as you breathe, it disturbs the surrounding particles. These disturbances ripple outward, a traveling pattern of compression and release, moving through air, through water, even through solid rock. To call sound vibration is simple, but the truth is more elegant. It's the music of motion itself. Every sound you've ever heard, from the rustle of leaves to the laughter of a friend, is simply energy traveling as a wave. It needs no light, no color, only a medium willing to carry it forward. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the faint ticking of a distant clock. Even if you can't see it, your mind can picture it, because your ears have learned to translate waves of pressure into meaning. Or picture the low hum of a refrigerator, that steady mechanical sigh in the kitchen at night. Feels constant, almost invisible, yet it's still energy moving through the air. Even the soft pulse of your own heartbeat makes sound. You don't hear it all the time because it's internal, masked by the noise of the world around you. But in rare moments of silence, lying awake at night, or pressing your ear to a pillow, you might feel that muffled rhythm echoing inside your skull. This is the hidden texture of our everyday lives. A universe alive with tiny quivers, each one waiting for an ear to listen. But how do we listen? The ear is more than a doorway. It's an interpreter. Sound enters as pressure waves in the air, funneled by the outer ear, traveling down a narrow canal to a delicate membrane called the eardrum. This membrane trembles like the surface of a drum, passing its vibrations to three tiny bones, the hammer, anvil, and stirrup, the smallest bones in the human body. They magnify the movement and send it inward to the cochlea, a spiral chamber lined with microscopic hair cells. These cells are tuned to different frequencies, like keys on a piano. When a wave passes through the cochlea, it brushes against them in a very specific pattern, triggering electrical signals that rush to your brain. And in that moment, so fast you never notice it, the brain transforms raw motion into sound. A whisper, a violin, a roar of surf. Think about that for a moment. The ocean you think you hear in a seashell is not a direct message from water hundreds of miles away. It's your brain interpreting vibrations, just as it always does. What changes is the source of those vibrations, and the shape that molds them. In the open air, countless soft noises surround you. The hum of distant traffic, the wind stirring against windows, the faint buzz of electricity in the walls. These are so quiet and diffused that your ear barely notices them. But when you press a seashell to your ear, something remarkable happens. Its spiral curves catch those ambient sounds, bouncing and filtering them until certain frequencies are amplified. Your ear picks up those frequencies, and your brain weaves them into something familiar, something vast and fluid, like waves washing ashore. This is sound at its most mysterious. It's not always about the thing making the noise. It's about how the noise is shaped and how your mind interprets it. In a way, sound is both physical and personal. The same vibration that feels like music to one person may be meaningless to another. A lullaby can comfort one listener and leave another unmoved. When you hold a shell, the murmur you hear is yours alone, because your surroundings, your memories, and even the sensitivity of your ears decide what that murmur becomes. So, sound is vibration traveling through matter. But the seashell doesn't make its own sound. It reshapes the world's quietness into something recognizable. If sound is simply vibration, if it needs a medium and a listener to come alive, then what exactly are we hearing in that hollow spiral? And why does it resemble the sea so closely, even to someone who has never stood on a shore? In the next chapter, we'll look at the seashell itself, its elegant curves, its natural geometry, and how its shape turns the faint murmur of everyday life into a soft ocean in your hands. Every seashell carries a story etched in calcium, spiraling outward like a frozen breath of the sea. Its curves are not random decoration. They are precise, elegant forms shaped by the slow rhythm of life, a mollusk adding layer upon layer as it grows, following a pattern older than humanity itself. When you hold a shell close to your ear, you're holding geometry that nature perfected over millions of years. The spiral, smooth on the outside and hollow within, is more than beautiful. It's functional, and it's the key to why the shell seems to whisper. Look closely at a large conch shell. The opening flares wide, then narrows and coils inward, winding toward a central core. This shape is called a logarithmic spiral, a curve that appears again and again in the natural world. In hurricanes and galaxies, in sunflower seeds and the swirl of a snail's home. Mathematicians adore this spiral because it grows without changing its proportions. Nature uses it because it is strong, efficient, and endlessly scalable. But the spiral does more than shelter the creature that built it. It alters sound. The hollow chambers inside a shell bounce and reflect waves of air in complex ways. Some frequencies are strengthened, others fade away. The result is a gentle amplification of background noise, the faint hiss of air around you, the buzz of a light bulb, the distant hum of your own body, transformed into something that resembles the murmur of waves. Think of cupping your hand behind your ear. You instantly hear more because you've made a small resonator, a curved surface that catches stray sound and funnels it inward. A seashell does this on a more intricate level. Its coiled passageway acts like a natural horn, boosting and shaping the quietest noises so they seem fuller, richer, deeper. To the listener, this subtle amplification feels like magic. You expect silence inside a shell, but instead you hear movement. The brain, always eager to recognize patterns, translates that filtered sound into something familiar. It becomes water rushing, surf tumbling, a tide that rolls forever just out of sight. This is resonance at work, though we'll explore it in more detail later. For now, think of resonance as a conversation between shape and sound. Certain forms like certain vibrations and will naturally emphasize them. In a seashell, the spiral chambers happen to emphasize the soft, low whoosh of ambient air and distant noise. Hold a shell in different places and you'll notice the sound change. In a busy street, the ocean inside will feel harsher, less soothing, because it reflects the chaos around you. In a quiet bedroom, the same shell will sound softer, more like a faraway sea. The shell isn't producing sound on its own. It's sculpting whatever sound is already present. This invites a deeper reflection. A shell isn't just an object you find on the sand. It's a piece of living architecture, designed by a creature that never imagined human ears would one day use it as a listening device. The mollusk built its home to survive the push and pull of real waves, to grow strong against predators and storms. And yet, long after that creature has gone, its empty home keeps shaping sound in a way that reminds us of the very sea it came from. There is poetry hidden in this practicality. Nature's forms are rarely wasted. What keeps a creature alive may also delight the human eye or trick the human ear. In the seashell's spiral, biology and physics meet. Life builds for strength and sound finds a chamber where it can play. If you trace your finger along the ridges of a shell, you're feeling the slow passage of time. Each line marks growth, like rings in a tree trunk. And just as a tree records seasons, the shell records the steady work of a creature spinning calcium into armor. The geometry is no accident. It's an echo of deep mathematical laws, of patterns written into the world long before humans ever studied them. So, when you lift a shell to your ear, you're not only listening to filtered sound, you're holding a record of nature's craftsmanship. This curved chamber, shaped by survival, also happens to be an instrument. But is this instrument really singing of the sea? Or is it merely turning ordinary air into something that reminds us of it? If it's the latter, why does our brain latch onto that memory so strongly? as if it knows the sound of the ocean even when far from shore? In the next chapter, we'll step deeper into the illusion. We'll see how resonance creates the roar inside a shell, why it sounds so much like the sea, and how our minds help complete the picture. Even if the nearest coastline lies hundreds of miles away, you lift the shell again to your ear. The same soft rush greets you, airy, endless, as if a secret tide is rolling in. Yet you're nowhere near the sea. There are no waves, no gulls, no salt wind. And still, your brain whispers, ocean. The truth is both stranger and more beautiful than any myth. The sound you hear inside the shell isn't stored water from a distant shore. It isn't the trapped voice of the tide. What you're hearing is closer to home, far closer than you imagine. The shell does not make sound. It shapes the sound that's already there. Even in the quietest room, the air trembles with faint noises. Your heartbeat, the hum of distant streets, the subtle hiss of air moving past your own body. Normally, these sounds are too small to notice. But the spiral of a shell is like a master sculptor of echoes. It catches this ambient hum and bends it, magnifies it, filters it into something vast. If you hold your hand to your ear instead, you'll hear a whisper too, a soft rush. The human ear is its own seashell, curved and resonant. But a conch or scallop amplifies the effect. Its tunnels act as resonators, bouncing stray frequencies back and forth until your ear picks them up as a pattern. That pattern just happens to feel oceanic, wide, rhythmic, alive. This is called resonance when certain shapes favor certain vibrations. Just as a bottle will sing when you blow across its mouth, the inner ridges of a seashell favor particular tones. What you hear is not a single note but a spectrum of frequencies blended into a soft roar. It's the same physics that makes wind hum in a hollow pipe or a cup ring when you tap it with a spoon. The sound was never hidden. It was waiting to be revealed. Why, then, does your brain leap to the ocean? Because our minds love to match patterns. Somewhere deep inside, the hiss and rumble of filtered air resembles the surf you've heard before. A childhood beach trip, a memory of standing barefoot where the waves breathe in and out. Neuroscientists call this auditory pareidolia, the brain shaping random noise into something familiar. Like seeing animals in clouds, you're hearing waves in the whisper of air. If you had never known the sea, you might not think ocean at all. You might imagine wind through trees or rain on a roof. The shell itself is neutral. The meaning comes from you. It's an invitation, not a recording. Close your eyes. Feel how soft the illusion is. The ocean in a shell is an echo of your own world, wrapped in calcium curves. And it carries another secret, one even deeper than resonance and memory. Every seashell was once alive. A creature made it, layer by patient layer, spiraling outward as it grew. When you hold a shell to your ear, you're not just hearing air. You're hearing the architecture of a life. The sound feels vast because the shell itself is a map of time. Growth etched in rings. Years pressed into stone. The ocean isn't in the shell, but the story of the ocean is. You are holding a fragment of the sea's body, hardened into geometry. You are listening not to waves, but to the language of form. The way matter bends and coils, how space itself sculpts sound. The shell is a frozen ripple, a fossilized current. And yet, the mystery deepens. Why should empty space make music at all? Why should still air sound alive when caught in a curve of calcium? To answer that, we must wander further, into the invisible rivers of air, into the endless murmurs that flow around us, into the unseen ocean that surrounds you even now. This ocean is not water. It's the sea of sound itself. A sea you've been swimming in since birth, though you rarely notice its currents. The ocean that isn't there, yet never leaves you. You hold the shell to your ear again, and now the rush feels layered. There's the immediate, vibrating hum of air curling through its spiral, but over it, something subtler stirs. Something memory-shaped, gently folding itself into the sound. The human mind is a storyteller by nature. Even before we can speak, our brains are weaving threads of meaning from scattered sensations. A shadow on the wall becomes an animal. A flicker of light becomes a dance. A distant hum becomes a wave. This is auditory pareidolia, the brain's gift for finding patterns where there are none, shaping noise into something familiar. When you hear the ocean in a shell, it is partly the physics of resonance at work, but it is also the ghost of your memories. Perhaps you remember standing at the edge of a shore as a child, toes sinking into wet sand, the wind tousling your hair. Perhaps a vacation long ago, the warmth of sun on your shoulders, the cry of seagulls, the tang of salt in the air. All of these impressions are imprinted in the folds of your brain. Even if you haven't been to the sea, your mind still knows what waves should sound like. Stories told by others, photographs you've seen, films, poems, all of these supply the shapes your mind can recognize. The shell becomes a mirror for these stories, a vessel in which your memories and imagination mingle with reality. There's something comforting in this interplay between sound and mind. Every whisper of a shell becomes more than a physical phenomenon. It becomes a conversation between your senses and your soul. You listen, and your brain fills in the narrative. The rise and fall of imaginary waves, the rhythm of tides long gone, the invisible sway of a world just out of reach. This is not illusion in the trivial sense. It is creation. You are actively participating in the world of sound, coloring it with your experience, shaping it with your understanding. You are a storyteller, your mind translating raw physics into lived sensation. Every rush of air, every subtle vibration, is transformed into a narrative only you could hear. And yet, even as the mind weaves, the shell speaks its own language. It does not insist that you hear waves. It simply presents the hum, the resonance, the quiet echo of space and matter. What you perceive as ocean is a dance between reality and memory, between physics and poetry. You are part of this dance, an interpreter of invisible signals. But what if you've never even seen the ocean? The shell still speaks. It still carries a sound, a vibration, a whisper of resonance. You may not recognize it as waves at first. You may hear only air or silence, or the faint rushing of your own heartbeat mirrored in its curves. And yet, the shell communicates something universal. The physics of sound, the intimacy of form, the gentle invitation to listen. The mind does not need experience to perceive wonder. It only needs attention. When you focus, when you breathe slowly and hold the shell gently, you begin to understand that the sound is not just in the shell. It is in you and you are in it. Memory, imagination, resonance, and perception merge into one quiet truth. Sound is never only sound. It is relationship, history, and imagination, all wrapped in the spiral of a single object. And so, you learn a subtle lesson. Listening is more than hearing. Listening is presence. It is allowing yourself to be shaped by the world around you, and in turn, shaping it with your mind. The shell becomes a teacher, demonstrating the exquisite interplay between the external and the internal, between the tangible and the imagined. You feel the pulse of it, the hum of air, the whisper of memory, the quiet insistence of your own awareness. You begin to see that every sound in your life carries more than physics. It carries context, emotion, and story. Even a city street, even the hum of a refrigerator, could become a narrative if you let your mind trace its patterns. And as you place the shell down gently, you carry a new understanding with you. That every vibration is a canvas, every whisper a prompt, every hum a story waiting to be noticed. Sound is alive, not just in the world outside, but inside the folds of your perception, in the interplay of mind and matter. The shell teaches you patience, attention, and reverence. It reminds you that wonder is not reserved for the extraordinary. It lives in the ordinary, the overlooked, the simple spiral of a seashell. And, most importantly, it tells you that even if you've never walked along a shore, even if you've never touched the sand, even if the ocean is a distant concept, sound alone can carry its presence, and your mind can make it home. And now, as you set the shell aside, you sense a new horizon opening. Resonance exists everywhere, not just in shells. Cavities, hollows, and curves of all kinds capture sound, each with its own story to tell. Perhaps you will notice them next. In a cup, a cave, a conch horn, even the hollow of your hand. The world is full of chambers and curves, waiting to catch and shape the sound of life. And as you step forward into this awareness, You carry with you a new curiosity. To explore, to listen, and to see the invisible oceans everywhere, waiting to be discovered. The world is filled with hidden chambers, waiting quietly to catch sound. Not every resonator is as obvious as a shell. Some are enormous, carved by water over millennia. Others are tiny, shaped by the curve of your hand. Every hollow, every cavity, every concave surface holds the potential to make the invisible audible. Imagine a cave. Step inside and the air itself changes. Your voice, even the faintest whisper, bounces from wall to wall, stretching, folding, and returning to you transformed. The cave amplifies, softens, and reshapes the sound, teaching you a subtle truth. Resonance is not only physics. It is the dialogue between matter and motion. It is nature listening and nature speaking back. A simple cup, an ordinary object on a kitchen counter, can reveal the same principle. Hold it to your lips, tap the rim lightly with a finger, and suddenly you discover a hidden voice. The hollow interior creates space for vibrations to linger, giving sound a body, a presence you might never have noticed before. These miniature chambers remind you that resonance is everywhere. The world itself is a kind of instrument, and you are invited to play. Even a conch horn, ancient and weathered, carries centuries of acoustic understanding. Humans discovered early that curved shapes could amplify, distort, and channel sound, and that some forms carried more than noise. They carried meaning, ritual, and emotion. A horn becomes an extension of the body, a vessel to project sound across valleys, fields, or oceans. It is a bridge between human intention and natural law. Place your hand gently over the hollow of another's hand. Cup it, creating a small chamber. Speak softly into it, and you will hear a tiny echo, a concentrated resonance that seems to belong only to that intimate space. Sound responds to form in ways subtle and profound. You begin to notice that every curve, every hollow, every cavity has a story to tell. If only you are willing to listen. The principle is universal. From shells to caves, from cups to conch horns, the shapes of nature and the objects we craft amplify, bend, and color sound. Curves capture it. Hollows invite it. Every enclosure has a voice of its own, one that cannot exist without the interaction of matter and motion, of air and attention. Resonance is not limited to the grand or exotic. Even in a small room, the gentle curve of a corner can catch sound in unexpected ways. A hallway can turn a whisper into an echo that seems almost alive. A tree hollow can become a natural amplifier, carrying the song of wind through its chambers, echoing with its own woody timbre. Everywhere you look, nature and physics conspire to create hidden soundscapes, subtle and beautiful. As you walk through the world with this awareness, you begin to perceive layers of sound previously unnoticed. The rustle of leaves is shaped by their curves. The hollow of a fallen log carries the drip of rain differently than the flat forest floor. Even snow, in its soft accumulation, muffles and reshapes sound, turning ordinary footsteps into a muted rhythm. Nature is full of secret resonators, each inviting you to explore its voice. And yet, there is something more than the physics of resonance here. Each hollow, each curve, each chamber holds a memory of motion. A cave has been carved over eons by dripping water and shifting rock. A shell grew over years in ocean currents. A tree hollow formed slowly, shaped by life and decay. Sound interacts not just with form, but with history. Every vibration becomes a whisper of time itself. Consider this as you hold a shell, a cup, a conch, or simply your hand cupped near your ear. You are not merely hearing sound. You are participating in a dialogue across scales of space and time. You are connecting the immediate present with the long, slow processes that shaped the shapes themselves. The world resonates not only because it is hollow, but because it has been lived in, formed, and transformed. There is poetry in this realization. The world is full of hidden chambers catching sound, and each chamber invites you to discover it. Resonance is everywhere, not only in objects, not only in physical law, but in your perception, your attention, your willingness to notice. You begin to hear the subtle harmonies that were always present, waiting quietly for your awareness. This is the quiet lesson of natural resonators. That sound is not confined to a single source, a single shape, a single moment. It moves through the curves of matter, folds into hollows, stretches across space, and lingers in memory. Resonance exists not only outside you, but also within. Your own body becomes a chamber, your own awareness an amplifier, your imagination a composer of endless echoes. And so you carry the lesson forward. Every shell is part of a larger story. Every cave, every hollowed log, every conch horn is part of the same universal truth. The world is designed to sing, if only we pay attention. You begin to see resonance not as a property of a single object, but as a principle of life itself, a rhythm connecting form, history, perception, and imagination. The spiral of the shell, the curve of a cup, the hollow of a cave. These are all invitations to listen, to notice, to participate in the subtle music of the world. And as you listen more carefully, you begin to sense another layer beyond sound. Perhaps it is time. Perhaps it is memory. Perhaps it is the faint echo of life itself, whispering softly in every hollow. And in this way you realize, the shell was only the beginning. The world is full of resonators, and each one is waiting to teach you the quiet, patient joy of listening. The adventure continues, not just through the shapes around you, but through the stories they hold. Each chamber, each hollow, each natural curve becomes a new lens through which to hear, to feel, and to imagine. Perhaps next you will consider not just the sound, but the life embedded in these forms. The creatures that built them, the waters that carved them, the winds that whispered through them. Resonance is not only sound. It is history, memory, and the deep hum of life itself. A seashell is more than a vessel of sound. It is a tiny archive of life, a record of ocean currents, of tides, of sunlight and salt. Hold it close, and you are holding the story of a creature that once lived, moved, and grew within its spirals. Every line, every curve, every ridge is a chapter written in calcium and memory, etched slowly over time. Imagine the mollusk that once called this shell home. For months or years, it carried its shell through warm, shifting waters. The tides pushed it along sandy bottoms, across coral gardens, under the sun and the moon. Tiny particles of sand and plankton pressed against it, leaving marks that are now fossilized in the ridges. Even the smallest imperfection is a trace of experience, a testament to life itself. The shell preserves not only the life of the creature but also the life of the sea. Ancient currents, storms, and subtle changes in temperature are all embedded in its structure. Each spiral, each opening, each polished surface is a record of conditions long past. It is a natural diary, a silent witness to the rhythms of the ocean. When you hold it, you hold a fragment of history, a reminder that even the smallest things can contain vast stories. Consider the layers of a shell. Much like the rings of a tree, they tell of growth, of survival, of the passage of time. Some years were calm, the shell smooth and evenly patterned. Others were harsh, leaving ridges or scars, evidence of struggle or adaptation. The mollusk carried all of this with it, a living chronicle of resilience. When the creature moved on or perished, the shell remained as a relic of its life, waiting to be discovered, to be held, to be listened to. Seashells are also storytellers of the ocean's voice. Not the sound you hear when you press a shell to your ear, though that is part of it, but the quiet narrative of water and rock, of sand and sun. A shell has witnessed the dance of waves, the migration of plankton, the passing of seasons. In this way, it becomes a bridge between the present and the deep past, between the living and the lifeless, between you and the vast, pulsing sea. Even when the ocean is far away, the shell carries it with you. You may have picked it up from a beach hundreds of miles from any water, yet it still bears the imprint of tides and currents. It is a reminder that the world is interconnected. The water that shaped the shell once traveled great distances, and the creature that inhabited it once responded to rhythms you can almost imagine. Waves rising and falling, light shifting through the water, the tug of currents beneath. Holding a shell, you become aware of your own place in time. You think of the countless generations of mollusks that came before, the changes in seas long vanished, the oceans that reshaped continents. The shell hums not just with sound, but with history. Its form invites reflection, not only on life that once was, but on the cycles that continue beyond your own existence. And yet, the memory of a shell is not static. It interacts with yours. Perhaps it reminds you of a childhood spent by the water, of a vacation long ago, of the first time you ever pressed a shell to your ear. These personal recollections merge with the shell's own story, intertwining memory and matter, biology and emotion. The ocean becomes not just a place, but an experience, a resonance of time, sound, and perception. Think of how small a shell is compared to the ocean it once knew. Tiny and fragile, it carries the echo of vast tides, the touch of sunlight on moving waves, the slow, imperceptible shaping by wind and current. In this way, you begin to realize that memory, history, and scale are relative. The grandest forces of nature can leave their traces in the smallest objects, waiting for someone to notice, to hold, and to imagine. Seashells are also teachers. They remind us to observe, to listen, to consider life beyond the immediate and obvious. They invite patience, for their stories unfold slowly, over months, years, centuries. They teach that even a brief interaction, your touch, your gaze, your attention, connects you to something vast, something older and wiser than yourself. Every shell is a portal into a world both microscopic and immense, intimate and eternal. Perhaps what you hear in a shell is not only sound, but the memory of life itself. Not physics alone, but the deep past humming softly through form and matter. The shell preserves echoes of movement, of struggle, of existence. It holds the story of a mollusk, of an ocean, of time, compressed into a shape small enough to cradle in your hand. And so, each time you pick up a shell, you participate in a quiet meditation. You listen not just with your ears, but with your mind and heart. You feel the connection between life forms, between earth and water, between memory and imagination. You remember that even the simplest object can be a time capsule, a bridge across space and history, a gentle whisper from the world that existed long before you, and will continue long after. Seashells are subtle reminders that everything has a story, that every form holds history, that resonance is not only in sound, but in the layers of time and life. And as you hold one, as you turn it gently in your hands, you become part of that continuum, listening, observing, imagining, remembering. Perhaps what you hear is not just the ocean at all, but the narrative of life itself, folded carefully into a shape small enough to cradle. The shell hums with memory, with story, with the slow, persistent pulse of existence. And in that hum, you find a reflection of your own journey, your own listening, your own resonance with the world. Silence is rarely empty. Even in the quietest room, even on the most deserted beach, there is texture, depth, and subtle movement. The absence of deliberate sound is not absence itself. It is a space in which other sounds, smaller and gentler, emerge. The world hums softly if you pay attention. Close your eyes. Listen. You may hear the faintest shift of air, the subtle beat of your own heart, the whisper of blood moving in your ears. These are not disturbances. They are life, intimate and immediate. Silence allows them to be noticed. It is not an absence of sound, but a canvas upon which the quietest vibrations can paint their presence. In the ocean, silence has a different character. Beneath waves, where light barely penetrates, the quiet is a living thing. Water carries sound differently than air, amplifying some vibrations, muting others. Even in the deepest trenches, there is a faint pulse, a signal from distant creatures, from shifting currents, from the slow movements of the earth itself. In these places, silence is rich and layered, almost as if the ocean itself is breathing in whispers. The seashell shows us this delicate balance. When pressed to your ear, it does not generate sound. It reveals the subtle noises of your surroundings. It captures and amplifies, turning a quiet room into a miniature ocean. The hum you hear is partly physics, partly imagination, partly the interplay of memory and expectation. Silence, in this sense, is never complete, It is a filter, a lens through which faint signals become perceptible, and the mind learns to listen more carefully. Consider how human perception changes in silence. In a quiet space, you become aware of nuances you would normally overlook. The creak of a floorboard, the whisper of wind through trees, the gentle tick of a clock. Each sound is magnified, not in volume but in significance. Silence sharpens attention. It awakens the mind to the details that matter, revealing layers that are otherwise drowned out by louder distractions. There is a profound contrast between deep silence and faint ambient noise. In a library, in a secluded forest, in an empty room, the mind becomes attuned to subtle cues. A soft breeze, the distant call of a bird, the gentle ripple of water. These sounds gain a weight, a presence, a meaning they rarely have in daily life. Silence amplifies subtlety. It teaches the listener that every vibration, no matter how small, is part of a larger resonance. Meditation on silence brings another discovery. The ocean in a shell may be the ocean within yourself. Blood moves, lungs expand and contract, the nervous system hums. This internal rhythm creates a symphony all its own, and the shell becomes a mirror, amplifying the faint echoes of your own body. You realize that listening is not only outward-facing, it is a dialogue between the world and your own inner landscape. Silence also shapes memory. In quiet moments, the mind recalls past sounds with astonishing clarity. You can remember the lapping of waves on a beach, the distant rumble of a storm, the soft hum of a seashell pressed against your ear in childhood. Silence allows memory to surface, and with it, emotion, nostalgia, calm, wonder. You understand that listening is not only an act of perception, but also an act of remembrance, of recreating experience in the present moment. Science confirms what poetry has long suggested. The quieter the environment, the more our brains are capable of detecting subtle auditory patterns. Neurons fire differently in silence, sensitive to nuances they would normally ignore. Auditory attention is heightened. The world, when stripped of noise, reveals textures we often miss. The hidden pulse of a river, the resonance of stone, the rustle of leaves in windless air. Silence is a lens, sharpening the invisible threads of sound that connect all things. There is another layer, too, the emotional texture of silence. In silence, anxiety can emerge, but so can clarity. Emptiness can feel vast, but it can also feel like space for reflection. The ocean, after all, is rarely uniform in sound. Some waves crash and roar, others lap gently at the shore. Silence is a tidal zone for the mind. It can overwhelm or it can comfort, depending on how you inhabit it. By listening deeply, by embracing stillness, you find that silence can soothe, teach, and inspire. Even the soft hum of a shell demonstrates this. You cannot hear the ocean exactly as it once was, nor can you capture the mollusk's life. But in the quiet, the shell invites a conversation. Physics and perception intertwine. The shell becomes an amplifier not only of sound, but of awareness. You notice your own breath, your heartbeat, the subtle symphony of a quiet room, and in doing so, you recognize that the ocean is not always external. It is internal and ever-present. Silence also cultivates imagination. In a quiet room, your mind begins to wander, to explore, to create. The shell hums, but your brain transforms that hum into waves, into wind, into memories and dreams. Science explains the mechanism, but imagination completes it. You realize that perception is both physiological and poetic. The world resonates because you listen, and you listen because the world resonates. In this sense, silence is not nothing. It is a gateway. It is a way of listening that amplifies subtlety, connects memory to perception, and blends science with wonder. Every quiet moment becomes an opportunity to hear the unseen, to feel the unspoken, to encounter the familiar in ways that are always new. And when you return the shell to your hand, you understand that the faint ocean you hear is also the quiet world inside yourself, waiting to be acknowledged, explored, and cherished. So, the next time you find yourself in a silent room, or on an empty shore, or in the quiet of night, notice the textures around you. Listen to the faint hums, the barely there movements, the small echoes of life. Understand that silence is never empty. It is full of potential, full of hidden sound, full of reflection. And in that fullness you carry not only the ocean, not only the shell, but the deep resonance of existence itself. The world offers itself in layers, some visible, some hidden, some vibrating quietly in the spaces between. A shell pressed to your ear is more than physics. It is an invitation. The spiral of its form, the hollowness within, the faint resonance it carries. These are all tangible, measurable phenomena. And yet, what you hear is also something else. A story, a memory, a suggestion of a place you may have never visited, a sea you may have never seen. Perception, it turns out, is always both science and poetry. When you hear the shell, you hear its shape. The cavity within, its curves and ridges, channels sound in ways that can be described in equations. Resonance, amplification, interference. These are the words scientists use. But in your mind, the shell may also become a miniature theater. Waves crash softly against imaginary shores, gulls cry in the distance. The wind tangles with the memory of a warm sun on skin. Both interpretations coexist. The human mind has always been a hybrid, half observer, half dreamer. Consider how light is both particle and wave, how the same phenomenon can be described by mathematics and experienced as beauty. Sound, too, carries this duality. A shell is a lesson in humility. The physics is real, measurable, repeatable. The hum, however, is personal, mutable, unique to each listener. Two people press the same shell to their ears and may hear differently, and both are correct. Perception is not a single truth. It is a bridge between the objective and the imagined, between reality and interpretation. Memory shapes perception as well. If you have walked along a beach, if you have watched waves fold over one another, the shell will call forth echoes from your past. Even if you have never seen the sea, the shell invites your imagination to fill in the gaps. This is auditory pareidolia at work. The brain finds familiar patterns in ambiguous sounds, turning a faint hum into a wave, a whisper, a rhythm. The shell becomes a medium, a translator, a storyteller. Science explains the mechanism, but it does not diminish the wonder. And here is the quiet magic. Every act of listening is a collaboration between the external world and your inner world. The shell hums, the room breathes, the air vibrates, but your mind organizes and interprets, weaves and remembers. You are part scientist, part poet, part historian of your own sensations. The hum is not just in the shell. It is also in you. You carry it inward, expand it, resonate with it, and in doing so, you create something entirely new. This interplay of fact and imagination extends beyond shells. Look at a leaf in sunlight, a pebble in a stream, a cloud hovering above a mountain. Each is a physical object with measurable properties, yet each is also a canvas. Light dances across veins and edges. Patterns suggest familiar forms. Textures spark memory. The world constantly offers itself in dual form, and the mind is ever ready to interpret, to perceive not only what is, but what might be. Science, in this sense, enhances wonder rather than replaces it. Understanding how sound travels, how resonance occurs, how our brains detect patterns does not make the hum of a shell less mysterious. It deepens the experience. Knowledge provides context, and context opens space for richer imagination. The poetry of perception lies precisely in this overlap. Knowing the rules, while allowing yourself to imagine their endless variations. Perception is also a mirror. As you listen, as you watch, as you touch, you notice your own patterns, preferences, biases. Which sounds draw your attention? Which colors feel vibrant? Which forms evoke calm? You realize that perceiving the world is inseparable from perceiving yourself. The shell hums, but it also teaches. Its spiral curves are mathematics. Its hollow is physics. Its whisper is memory, imagination, and introspection. In listening to it, you listen to yourself. And yet, perception is never static. Just as the ocean is never truly still, what you hear or see changes with time. Your experiences, your mood, the light, the air, the subtle vibration of your own body, all affect what you notice, what resonates, what lingers. A shell heard in childhood may evoke one sensation. The same shell heard years later evokes another. Perception is fluid, alive, and as fleeting as a wave breaking on the shore. In a quiet room, in a library, in the calm of night, you can practice this awareness. Notice the small echoes, the soft hums, the interplay of shadow and light. Observe how your mind fills in gaps, how patterns emerge from ambiguity, how the tangible and intangible dance together. The shell, the pebble, the leaf, they are guides, teaching patience, attention, and the gentle art of noticing. Ultimately, the poetry of perception is a meditation on presence. Listening deeply is an act of being fully there, fully engaged with the world as it exists and as it appears through your mind. The shell is a teacher, reminding you that every object carries layers of reality and imagination. Every sound has both physics and story. Every moment offers the opportunity to witness wonder. So, next time you hold a shell, do more than press it to your ear. Let it teach you how to listen, to observe, to perceive the world in all its complexity and beauty. Notice the intersection of fact and imagination. Celebrate the hum not only for what it is, but for what it evokes. In every faint vibration, there is a lesson. Science explains, but perception transforms. Knowledge is the frame and wonder is the painting. The shell is physics, yes, but it is also poetry. It is memory, it is imagination, it is presence. The hum you hear is both real and created by your mind, a delicate collaboration between the world and your perception. In understanding this, you glimpse the deeper rhythm of existence. That to perceive is to co-create, and that every act of listening is a small miracle. And as you hold the shell, feeling its weight and curves, you understand the next step. You carry it with you in the mind, in memory, in imagination. You carry the ocean's whisper, the hum of resonance, and the poetry of perception into every quiet moment. You are ready, finally, to hear the ocean everywhere. Not only in shells, but in the wind, in your pulse, in the soft, humming world around you. The shell in your hand is small, yet it carries something vast. It is a fragment, a whisper, a hint of the infinite rhythm of the sea. And once you have listened deeply, once you have felt the resonance hum through your mind and body, you begin to realize the ocean is not far away. It is not a distant shore, a tide only found in geography books or postcards. It is within you, and it travels wherever you go. Every wave you hear in the shell, every soft crash and retreat, is mirrored in your own pulse. The blood in your ears moves, the lungs expand and contract. The subtle vibration of your bones resonates quietly. The ocean you imagined or remembered is, in a way, your own heartbeat made audible. You carry it naturally without knowing it, as you walk, as you breathe, as you pause to notice the world around you. When you leave the beach, when you fold the map of the world in your pocket and step onto streets without sand or surf, the hum of the ocean need not fade. You can find it in small places, the rustle of leaves, the gurgle of a stream, the distant rumble of a train. Every sound is potential resonance, a hint of something larger, a suggestion of waves folding on themselves somewhere far away, or perhaps nowhere at all but alive in perception. The seashell, once a vessel for a mollusk, now becomes a vessel for memory, for imagination, for presence. It teaches that the world's whispers do not belong solely to the places where they originate. They belong also to those who listen, to those who carry them inward and outward, into cities and rooms, into pockets and purses, into quiet mornings and restless nights. The hum travels inwards first, and then radiates back out, coloring how you perceive even the most ordinary corners of your life. Carrying the ocean is, in a sense, carrying patience. Waves move in cycles, tides follow lunar rhythms, currents shift imperceptibly. The shell reminds you that life, like the sea, is continuous and layered. The hum you hear is both temporary and eternal. It teaches you to notice without grasping, to listen without demanding, to let presence unfold naturally. And when life becomes noisy, when the mind grows restless, you can return to that small, quiet resonance. You can hold the shell to your ear, or simply remember its whisper, and suddenly the world slows, expands, and breathes with you. Memory and imagination also travel with the ocean. Perhaps you have walked along distant shores, or perhaps the sound of waves is a creation of your mind. Either way, the shell preserves it. Each hum is a thread connecting past to present, reality to imagination, observer to observed. It reminds you that perception is not merely passive. It is active, creative, and deeply intertwined with who you are. In every note of resonance, there is a story, of places, of creatures, of time itself. The ocean, carried in this way, becomes a companion. It is not a companion that speaks, or demands, or directs. It is a soft presence, an undercurrent beneath the chatter of everyday life. It teaches you to move through the world with awareness, to notice subtle vibrations, to value quiet reflection. The seashell becomes a talisman, not because it is magical in the ordinary sense, but because it reminds you that you already possess the vastness it represents. And so, carrying the ocean is an act of mindfulness. It is noticing the small ripples in your own thoughts, the subtle harmonics of sound in the room, the way a breeze brushes against your skin like a gentle tide. It is realizing that every place has its own resonance, that every moment can hum if you are present enough to hear it. The hum of the sea becomes a lens through which you perceive the world, not as static, not as disconnected, but as alive, vibrating, interconnected. The shell also teaches generosity. Just as you carry the ocean within yourself, you can offer it to others, not literally, but through attention, presence, and sharing of wonder. A story told about the sea, a description of the sound of waves, a shared moment of quiet reflection. All are forms of carrying the ocean together. Resonance is never truly isolated. It spreads, touches, echoes. By holding the hum inward, you create space to let it radiate outward. Finally, carrying the ocean is about acceptance. Not every wave is perfect, not every hum is clear. The sea has storms, undertows, quiet lulls. Life mirrors this variability. The seashell reminds you to receive all of it. The calm and the chaos, the clear and the muddied hums, with equanimity. There is learning in listening, patience in resonance, and profound beauty in simply noticing. The world hums on, whether you pay attention or not, but when you do, you are carried gently along with it. Tonight, when the world is quiet, you can practice this. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and remember the hum. Let it fill your mind and body. Let it ripple outward into the spaces around you. Feel it in your pulse, in the warmth of your skin, in the soft rhythm of inhalation and exhalation. Let the world hum with you, like a shell held close to the ear, like an ocean folded into your own presence. The seashell is small, but its lesson is vast. The ocean it contains, once thought distant, is always near. It is in the wind that brushes past your face, in the soft murmur of life around you, in the beating of your own heart. You can carry it anywhere. Into cities, into mountains, into rooms where silence is precious and fleeting. You can carry it into sleep, letting it echo gently as dreams drift by, letting it remind you that vastness exists even in the smallest moments. And so, with the hum of the ocean inside you, you step forward. You carry the sea in your awareness, in your memory, in your imagination. You carry presence, patience, and wonder. You carry a world that hums softly, eternally, wherever you go. Tonight, let the world hum around you like a shell, and feel the quiet, infinite rhythm of life itself flowing within and through you. Now, as the last waves of sound settle softly, take a moment to rest in stillness. The shell is quiet in your hand, yet the hum lingers, subtle, infinite, woven into the spaces between your thoughts. It reminds you that listening is not merely hearing. It is being present, opening your awareness to the hidden symphony of life that moves through everything. Every sound you encounter, from the rush of wind through trees to the distant murmur of water, is a ripple of resonance, a vibration waiting to be noticed. And every memory, every imagined beach, every quiet story your mind tells itself, carries the same hum. You are both witness and participant, both observer and instrument, shaping the rhythm of the world simply by being attentive. Let the ocean fold inward now, not as a distant place, but as a gentle presence within your own body and mind. Feel it in your heartbeat, in the subtle rush of blood, in the rise and fall of your breath. Let it remind you that vastness can live in small spaces, that wonder can thrive in stillness, that memory and imagination can carry you across time and distance with a single, quiet hum. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, let the world hum around you like a shell. Let it ripple softly through your dreams. You carry the ocean with you, always, everywhere, silently, eternally.